Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Lowdown. I'm your host, Lorenzo Mercado, and today I'm super excited because I got Alex Sabio on here, and he happens to be someone who's absolutely killing it in the hospitality space, specifically in Airbnbs, hotels. He also is partner and manages an investment fund, and so he's really killing it. And one thing I really love about Alex is he actually happens to be a respiratory therapist also. I'm a nurse, and so I really feel drawn and connected with you. So Alex, welcome to the show.
Hey, Lorenzo, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, Alex, for people who don't know who you are, maybe you can go into a little bit about yourself and then maybe what your portfolio looks like right now.
Sure. Alex Sabio. I live here in Southern California. Asian, so I got into healthcare. Did that about you walk into any hospital, you'll see Filipinos everywhere. So that's me.
Yep.
I've been a respiratory therapist for over 22 years now.
Okay.
Really enjoy that job. I specialize with NICU, PICU, specifically transports. So I'm on the transport team. Absolutely love doing that. I've been investing in real estate for over 20 years now and made like every single mistake in the book. Got into long-term rentals, thought I'd do well in that, and I didn't. There wasn't any cash flow or anything like that. Actually, had the 2008 bubble burst on me and was greatly affected. Wound up having a foreclosure and bankruptcy, and still had some properties. Kind of kept them as long-term rentals. Luckily, the banks looked at a lot of those investment properties as like, oh man, those are toxic. We don't want anything to do with that. Luckily enough, that happened. Just over time, the properties went up in value, rents went up, mortgages got slowly paid down, refinanced into lower interest rates. And so in 2020, I really wanted to blow up the portfolio because I'm like, hey, I've been doing respiratory therapy for going close to 20 years now. How do I get out of it? What's the pathway? And so it was either get a lot more rentals or increase the income. And so I looked into apartment syndications, and that was 2020, and the world shut down on us. And luckily, I was just doing my thing, hustling and trying to, network and meet as many investors as possible. And kind of landed on Airbnb randomly. And just this one investor told me she was generating $24,000 a month of income with 3 properties in Florida. And I was like, I want to do that. Like, how do I get into that? And so I kind of went down the rabbit hole and really enjoyed it. I absolutely love the tax benefits. Haven't paid taxes in over 4 years now. Enjoyed the cash flow, even though cash flow is definitely down now versus the heyday of COVID. And just the fact that we could automate a lot of this. So currently we own 7 short-term rentals. We co-host 3, and we snowballed that into a fund. We also have a 76-unit hotel that we manage. So.
Well, it seems like you're definitely doing a lot. I've been following you for a while now, so it's been awesome to see the growth that you've had over the years. Did you get into real estate? I know you said you bought some houses you've had for like 20 years or so. Did you get into it with the intention of getting into like investing, or you just kind of bought it as your primary home?
My grandmother invested in real estate here in Southern California and Los Angeles, actually in the 70s, and she made really good money. And eventually, just something growing up, she had a bunch of boarding care facilities here in Southern California, another Asian thing to do. And it was just like, I don't know, it was just something ingrained in me like, oh, that's something I need to do. And when I bought my first house, I remember having a housewarming party, and she came up to me and she didn't tell me anything groundbreaking or anything like that. She told me something that's always stuck with me. She said, I never made really good money until I invested in real estate. And here was the most successful person I knew at that time. And so it was just always ingrained in me. And at the time, working night shift at the hospital, they always had all of these infomercials, invest in real estate, invest in real estate. And so it just kind of, at that time, people were buying homes left and right, and the prices were jumping. And I would listen in to these stories of all these nurses, these doctors buying homes at that time. They're like $150,000, $200,000. And, next year they were like $200,000, $300,000. And I'm like, I want to get into that. So that's kind of how I kind of landed onto it.
Have you noticed any skills have translated from the hospital into real estate that you didn't expect?
I think, especially with Airbnbs and short-term rentals, it's just because it never works out perfect, right? It never works out perfect where the patient comes in complaining of this, and this. There's always something else that happens, especially if you're working in the ICU. Now, granted, like most of the time, they're like, oh, this is a CHF, these are the meds that you give, so on and so forth. But it never works out perfect. And so what you have to do is you have to just work your way around it and find a solution. And so what I found is that, especially in stressful situations, and you kind of just work through those situations. For example, with short-term rentals, like a fridge might go out or our pool heater goes out. And so you just apologize and kind of work through it and try to figure it out and find the specialties that can help you out, right? You're not going to try to do everything on your own. So
Yeah. Yeah. You working in the NICU and the PICU, there's definitely very stressful situations. So I agree that having a fridge go out or any kind of like mundane things that happen in real estate definitely don't seem like anything crazy compared to when you're dealing in situations where there's like literally lives at stake.
yeah,
Um,
that's the funny thing. Like people always tell me that they can't do what I'm doing. I'm like, dude, you're the physician putting in these lines on a 400-gram baby. I can't do that. Like that is like way more stressful, and you've had to do so much more studying to do those things. Versus, I mean, what I do is like really easy.
do you still work full time, or have you toned it down since you've kind of scaled up your real estate business?
I do. I still work full time. I like the benefits. I work for a pretty good organization that pays me very well. That gives me very good benefits. I have a management team that I love. Hopefully, they watch this, and so it becomes a lot easier when you don't rely on the money as much. I
Mm-hmm.
was working 5, 6, 7 days a week for years, doing overtime to try to get to the point where I could reinvest that money. And I'm at the point where I don't have to now. I actually refuse to work any overtime because I have so much other things going on. So
That's good. In healthcare in general, I feel like there's like so much burnout. I know a lot of other people who work in the ICUs or on the floor, they have a lot of burnout. So especially when you were working so much, how did you avoid burnout, especially now when you started doing both?
well, I was there. I mean, I think I was there because I was working so much. I did a lot of stuff outside, and I worked night shift. Did a lot of activities outside. I did a ton of hiking. I used to run. I've gained a lot of weight now, but I used to run all the time and just do a lot of that stuff. And just I don't know. I looked at work as eventually pretty routine, and I got pretty good at it. So I never thought of it as like difficult work. What was difficult was being away all the time
Hmm.
and just working all the time. 5, 6, 7 days, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, I mean, your year goes. It's January. Next thing you know, it's November,
Yeah.
and you're like, well, shoot, I work the whole time. So I was getting burnt out. Not. I'm still doing it. It's still, as a business owner, it's something that you struggle with all the time to like balance your work and life and the business. So, but yeah, I did a ton of hiking at one point. I really enjoyed that, and I felt that helped out a ton.
Awesome. Yeah, it's definitely really important to try and find things outside of work, whether it's hiking or spending time with family to avoid the burnout. Maybe we can go into like the first deal. I mean, besides the primary homes that you've bought, and first deal is the hardest, and people always get in the analysis paralysis stage. How did that first deal go for you as far as like getting your first Airbnb?
So the first Airbnb we purchased August of 2020. So it's been a little over 4 years now. And mind you, I've been purchasing. I'm really cheap, by the way. For you guys that don't know me, I don't like to spend money, and so I've always purchased long-term rentals, and I would purchase them cheap, like you're talking 50, 80, maybe $120,000. And so at a certain point, I started doing some research on taxes, how to, save money on taxes, so on and so forth. And I reached out to, I live here in Southern California. I reached out to an agent in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee, and she told me, hey, this is the home you need to purchase. And it was $629,000. And I'm like, whoa, that's not something I'm used to, right? But we wound up purchasing that. And she told me, hey, you could purchase this with 10% down. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, that's pretty much the same money out of pocket. Whereas I was buying these homes in Cleveland or Huntsville, Alabama, all of these other places where I was purchasing for $60,000, $70,000. And she said, yeah, this property will probably generate $130,000 year one. And it's going to give you enough tax write-offs to where you're not going to pay anything in taxes. I'm like, ooh, tell me more. And so just kind of jumped in. It was brand new construction in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. We're going to self-manage this from 2,000 miles away with some software and like getting a right cleaner, so on and so forth. And that first year, that property generated $130,000. It also
Damn.
gave me an amazing tax break where
Yeah.
I paid zero in taxes. So I think I got a $41,000 tax refund year one. This is when interest rates were 3%. So I think our interest rate was 3.5% on that thing. And so you're talking a good like $60,000 minimum net profit. So my down payment, I pretty much made it all back. I did have to put a little bit more money because I wound up having a bankruptcy. So we had to pivot a little bit. And like I said, things don't work out as planned. So eventually I wound up having to put close to $120,000 into it. But you're talking about making an amazing return on your investment. You're getting almost all of your money back within the year one. Not only that, we were able to learn the business, really enjoy it, and then scale it up. And then not only that, we were able to teach others how to do the same thing.
That's amazing. What were some of the biggest issues that you had with that first one? Were there like, was it, and I know you said that you were managing it from across the country. Did you go see it a lot, or was there like any crazy stories?
I think initially you don't know what you don't know. And there are a lot of things that all of a sudden will come up. You're like, what is a sump pump? I have no idea what that like. I live in Southern California. We don't have basements. And so when things go down, then you have to try to figure it out. We never owned a hot tub before. I think our first ever guest, the hot tub didn't work. We were like, oh my gosh. So we wound up having to refund them because we're trying to be hospitable and be very nice. And so, having to do little things like that, dealing with hot tubs is a pain in the butt. Now you're managing people too, right? Versus just passively investing in long-term rentals. You're not having to do that because I would have property managers all the time and they dealt with all that stuff. And here we are self-managing. And so we would have to deal with cleaners. We'd have to deal with handymen. So you're learning a whole business from scratch. And so I kind of wish I had a playbook. Initially, I kind of did, but you kind of go through the bumps and bruises. That property actually was pretty turnkey. There wasn't too many like bad things that happened. Like you're talking the beds were brand new, the pots and pans, like the TVs, everything was brand new. And so there's definitely a lot of software that we deal with short-term rentals. And so a lot of times you'll change softwares and try to relearn it. So there's a learning curve there.
Yeah. I think you just got to do action. And like you said, you wish you kind of had a playbook, but I think as long as you can take like calculated risk and just like know that you're going to figure things out, I think that's the most important thing, because there's definitely no way that you're going to have it all figured out before you even start. Because if you do, I mean, even if you don't, that's how you just get in that analysis paralysis stage. So I totally agree. I actually just listed my first Airbnb. It happens to be a guest house on my mom's 3-acre property here in Fairfield. So we listed it 2 days ago, and we just got our first booking yesterday. It's our
Congrats.
first Airbnb ever. So yeah, super excited. I know you said you did a couple short-term rentals, and then eventually you get into the hotel stuff. What was that mind shift or mindset change that where you're like, I need to start doing something different versus like doing a bunch more Airbnbs?
Yeah, good question. I know when I had long-term rentals, I wanted to get into multifamily. And I've always understood that you could add so much value with just a few changes and improving the net operating income. And so, how can I translate that over to the Airbnb world? And I remember, stupid me, like, I remember wanting to scale my portfolio, and I told someone, "Hey, why don't I buy an apartment building and, just put Airbnb on every single one of them?" And they said, "Oh, you idiot! You mean like a hotel?" And I'm like, "Shoot, like someone already thought of it, right?" And
Mm-hmm.
so, I just started networking with a lot of different people who kind of had the same goals. And so I told myself, let's try that out. And so that's kind of how I did that. And I think that took me a good, like close to 3 years to eventually pull the trigger. But I want to say I joined a mastermind a year before that, started doing a lot of research, flew to so many cities and viewed so many different motels and hotels and analyzed a bunch of deals before I landed that first one. So
That's awesome. Where's the hotel again?
the hotel's in Bentonville, Arkansas. Now, before any of you jump on me, like before, like Arkansas is actually the home of Walmart. And so they're pouring tons of money into that area. If you look up Bentonville, Arkansas, Walmart headquarters, you could see that this is like a multi-million-dollar campus that's absolutely amazing. So there's a lot of construction jobs and there's a lot of businesses that go there. So yeah, we identified that market as one that we wanted to go to. And luckily, we just kind of randomly looked at an auction for a hotel that was going up that week, and we bid on it, and lo and behold, like they accepted our offer, or we won that auction, and we're like, oh crap, what do we do now? And so, yeah, we wound up having to put a 10% non-refundable down payment within 24 hours. And we had to close the property within 45 days, or we would lose our non-refundable 10% deposit. So,
Wow, that's very fast.
it's action. Let's take an action, right? It's like, hey, scared money don't make money. You got to take a risk at a certain point, but it was a calculated risk. So,
How many partners did you go in on the hotel with?
So the GPs, there are four of us for the fund, and then we took on a bunch of other investors. And at a certain point, what I was doing is I was adding so much value to so many different investors, teaching them all about short-term rentals, and a lot of them made good money off of it. And at a certain point, they were like, "Hey, if you ever have an investment deal that you are looking to grow or want to partner with, just reach out to me." And that's kind of how I was able to raise money for that hotel.
Got it. Did you have the fund before you had the hotel, or did the fund come after the hotel?
It was before, but not that much. Like you're talking like maybe a month before. I mean, we had been talking about it as a group. Like, what should we do? Should we syndicate? Should we start a fund? So on and so forth. And so we started the fund, and then, like I said, it was just a random one day that auction came about, and we jumped on it. So.
That's awesome. So if people say they're in healthcare or just other investors in general, say they want to get involved in a fund of any kind, whether that be with hospitality or syndications or whatever, what are some things that you'd advise them to like look out for or caution them against?
The biggest thing is really, who are your fund operators and what are their experience? What deals have they had? And it is the operation. The operations part is key. Like if they don't have good operations, they're going to fail. We see that all the time with like there's a lot of multifamily properties that are going, like foreclosing or whatever it is, and a lot of that has to do with just the operators aren't. It's not, some of them are experienced, but it's like they don't have the right boots on the ground. So if you don't have the operations, it's going to be it doesn't matter how much money you raise, so on and so forth. It's gonna fail, especially with hospitality, because there's so much that can go wrong. For example, one of our GPs, he actually lives there in Bentonville, and so they had a tornado come through, and like tornadoes never come through, but the thing is, like, we wound up having a flood and have some damage. So if you are like if your fund managers or whoever the syndicator is just kind of managing it from a distance and they don't really know, like it can go sideways really fast.
Yeah, that's one thing I've heard is you have to really make sure that one of the operators of the GP lives or is very familiar with the area that you guys are doing the deal in.
Yeah, and our GP actually, lives like right next door. It's almost too close to home to him, to a point where he's almost like, and especially like when we first took over, you're talking about our guy, and we would have failed as a team if we didn't have him. Like you're talking, he was putting in 18, 20 hours a day, every single day for like a good month, just to when we first changed over title. So.
That's crazy. What's been the biggest learning lessons that you've taken from the hotel so far that have been different from just like Airbnbs? If someone wants to go make that pivot from Airbnbs, say they have like 3 or 4 right now and they want to get into the small boutique hotel, what would be your advice?
Well, Airbnb, I mean, as difficult it is, it's actually way easier than the hotel. Airbnb, you're not having to deal with employees. Yes, you have cleaners, handymen, so on and so forth, but they're not like, under your payroll or anything. You could easily let a cleaner go. And I say that I've only let like 2 or 3 cleaners go. For the most part, we keep our cleaners, but with a hotel, you have staff that you're going to have to deal with, drama that you're going to have to deal with, hiring and firing all the time. And so you're a lot more dependent on staff with the hotel because it's such a big operation versus Airbnb. You could easily employ some software that's pretty cheap, and then you kind of just do your own thing. But with the hotel, you're having to deal with staff. Not only that, you're having to deal with partners. There's no way you're going to be able to take this deal down by yourself. You're going to have to partner with people that have the right net worth, that have the experience, that have done hotels in the past. So sometimes sometimes, just dealing with different personalities can be a little bit difficult, especially if you are used to doing everything on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, getting partners in real estate is harder than finding like a partner in real life with like romantically, because obviously like money's really involved. It's a lot like dating where you really have to find someone who just like complements the skill sets that you suck at and vice versa. I know you said you did a lot of networking. Is that how you found your partners for the hotel?
Yes, yes. The networking, one of a good friend of mine, Josh Goldstein, we met here in Southern California, and just had been randomly talking even before we got into short-term rentals. Like we were both in long-term rentals and kind of landed on it. So he's a good friend of mine, and then the other two have hotel experience. And it's weird. The real estate space is really small. And then
Yeah.
short-term rental space is even smaller. Like it seems like the big players kind of know each other, and everyone knows everyone. So I kind of linked up with them, and we have a pretty good friendship there.
Nice. Awesome. What are some like strategies you do that make yourself stand out in the hospitality space, whether it's your own personal Airbnbs or the hotel? Is there any specific approaches that you take or things that you do?
Yeah, the good thing is the answers are already there. They're there. You just go on Airbnb and type in the city, and you can see exactly what everyone else is doing. And all you have to do is Burger King method, like do exactly what they're doing, but maybe do it a little bit better. Maybe add another amenity or something like that. We do that for our short term rentals, and we do that for the hotel as well. Like we did the research and figured out what everyone else was doing. And you just have to add a little bit, a little tweak. For example, I just got off the phone with a student and I said, hey, what are some of we're looking, and her property was not generating as much income as it should. And I said, well, what are the other properties in the neighborhood doing? And for example, her property was generating around $60,000. And I saw this property just like a few houses down from her, and it's generating $90,000, but it has one less bedroom. And we're like, well, how could that be? What are they doing? We click on the listing, they have Nerf guns everywhere. I'm like, Nerf guns? Like, what is that? But when you read the reviews and look at the listing, like everyone raves about these Nerf guns. And not only that, they have this crazy lighting show. Like they have outdoor lights. And so at night, like it really stands out. You could probably, with technology now, you could easily automate this and make it like green and red during Christmas or purple during Easter, whatever you want. So they have like a cool little light show. So it's all about going to AirDNA, going on Airbnb, looking at what other properties are doing, and just copying and maybe adding your little flair to it with designs.
Yeah, a lot of people have definitely caught on to that trend. Like, I mean, I look at some places like in Arizona, you see the really themed Mario houses, and they have putt and all that different stuff. I definitely agree that you can't have just like the normal cookie cutter houses anymore. You really have to have the amenities, maybe the luxury stuff.
Yeah, a lot of simple things that you can do too, like an outdoor chess set. It probably costs you like $1,000 or something like that. But a lot of people are hesitant to spend that money. But you're like, hey, this guy's generating $20,000 more than you. Like, is it really worth it at that point? Then you just do the math at that point and say if it's worth it or not.
What are some trends that you're seeing right now with either the Airbnbs or the hotel space?
It is very saturated. There's a famous statement out there like Airbnb, like areas are not saturated. It's bedroom counts that are saturated. And whenever we go into different markets, we can say, oh yeah, there's like 40% of those are the listings in that market are 3 bedrooms. So I would stay away from the 3 bedrooms. And we can say, hey, there's only 2% of the homes have 5 bedrooms. So number one, just looking at the bedroom count and doing something a little different. And sometimes that's not within your budget, then you move on to another market, right? So number one, just to be able to combat the saturation is just get a different bedroom count than everyone else. As far as amenities, I'm seeing you're definitely there's a ratio that I like. So let's say you purchase $1 million home. Ideally, you want it to generate about $200,000 a year. And so that's about 20% of the purchase price. Now, what I'm seeing is to get within that ratio, that 20% of whatever your purchase price, revenue to purchase price, you're having to put a lot of amenities. And some of the people that are buying these larger, like $1.5 million, $2 million homes, if they're putting in $200,000-$300,000 worth of amenities, you're talking like pickleball court, miniature putt, so on and so forth. They're within that ratio. But when you find people with a vast majority of us are in, that are buying a $400,000 home, $600,000 home, that don't have, they might have a $10,000 budget. They are failing because they're not able to compete with all these other guys. So
That's really good information for sure. I think that's something that I would want to get into at some point. The pickleball thing. My mom, she has this property that we just listed the Airbnb on that's on 3 acres. So we got some space to do like a pickleball court or something like that.
yeah, I mean, you're talking $25,000-$30,000, and it's in NorCal, right? And
Yeah.
so you kind of have to know your target demographic who's coming and really market to those people. For example, I have another friend who I just got off the phone with. She has a property in the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, and she was thinking that it would most of her guests would be, guys or girls who are in their late 30s, early 40s that are coming to the distilleries, but she's been having a lot of families come. And the reason why is because a lot of the other properties are catering to 30 and 40-year-olds, but there's none catering to families. And so I said, why don't you just dive in all in on this? So it's really adding the amenities that whoever you're targeting to. And so if pickleball's a thing in the area, then it might be worth it. If pickleball's not a thing, you might just be wasting $30,000 and it's not even worth it at that point.
Yeah, that's very true. Know your demographic. What are some of the biggest lessons in general that you've had between the Airbnb or the hotel stuff? If you were to start all over again, would you change anything or go down the same path?
I would go on the same path, but really go all in on networking with people. I think that's been the biggest bang for my buck, is just getting out there. And it's uncomfortable, right? Like, I'm an introvert. I don't like to talk about it. But the thing is, the more you talk to people, I mean, real estate investors in general, they're very giving with all of their knowledge. Like, hey, man, I bought a property over here and I did this and it's killing it. I want to do the same thing. Like, teach me. And you'd be surprised how many people are more than willing to share information with you if you just get out there and network. If you go to a network meetup, we used to do Zoom calls all the time during COVID. I think people are tired of it now, but I met so many people. That was a game changer because now I was networking with people all across the country. And we were sharing information versus just going to the local meetup, where I remember I attended one here in Southern California and everyone was talking about just flips and buying homes that were $100,000. If I just listened to them, I would have gotten into flips and, only buying homes $100,000. So just getting out there, what'll happen is your world will open up because there's all of these different strategies.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know. I agree that networking is super important. I don't know if you've ever read the book The Power of One More by Ed Milet, but his whole premise in the book is like, you're one relationship, one handshake, one meetup away from like changing your life, whether that's like potentially meeting a new partner, a new investor, whatever that is. So I think that the networking thing is super awesome.
That is like so true. I met up at this random meetup here in Southern California, and it was a random Saturday. And from that, all of us got into short-term rentals. One of them is really big in the short-term rental space, and all of us have like at least like 10 or 12 short-term rentals. And looking back at it 3 years later, we call ourselves the Barn Boys because the real estate meetup was at a barn, and we weren't even talking about short-term rentals at that point. Like, we were talking about long-term rentals and how great it would be to own a duplex and maybe make $200-$300 a month from this other one. But you never know who you're going to meet at any of these meetups. So.
You and Savannah, you guys started the healthcare Facebook group. Could you talk a little bit about that and some of the other benefits? It's just all ties back into like networking and putting all your stuff out there on social media, just some of the benefits that you've seen from that.
Yeah, another random meetup that I went to. And it was during COVID when we just opened up. Remember the feeling like, oh, we can get out in public now. And so I was researching, different real estate groups to go to. And I remember someone said, hey, we have this real estate meetup in Santa Monica. And I went there and met Savannah. And at the time, she was kind of building her brand. She was just starting to get into real estate. And the guy that organized the group kind of said, hey, you guys should do something together to help healthcare professionals. Because at that time, everyone was burnt out. This is like December of 2020, like when COVID was at its height or whatever it was, or we were just opening up, whatever it was, like all these healthcare professionals were burnt out and they just wanted to create a different side hustle, just they didn't want to be completely dependent on their healthcare W-2 job. And so with me, I had already been creating those meetups online. And so it was kind of a natural thing where I just wanted to add value to as many physicians, nurses, respiratory therapists, whoever it was out there. And so that was really the thought process of it. I wasn't smart enough to really capitalize on it or do anything with that group. I just wanted to add value to as many people as possible. So anyway, if you're a healthcare professional, the group is called Healthcare Professionals Investing in Real Estate. A big starter point is because people always complain about the amount of taxes that they pay. I say, well, that's optional, right? Like there's ways around getting around that, and this is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so you hear that enough, especially these physicians who pay taxes like every quarterly. They'll write out a check for $1,000, $30,000 every quarter. I'm like, wouldn't you rather spend that money elsewhere and get amazing tax breaks? So that's a conversation I always like to have with them.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about that specific? There's the Airbnb short-term rental loophole. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that for people who don't know.
Yeah, the short-term rental tax loophole, it's pretty popular if you just Google it. It's actually one of the reasons why I got into short-term rentals. One of the biggest hires I made initially, I believe it was like 2018. I remember hearing about people not paying taxes, and like a lot of the people I was hanging out with were upset at that. And with me, it was like, well, how do they do it? Like, what's the playbook? And so I always thought that every rich person out there probably is finding a way to get around paying taxes. And so spent money on a consultation, and my CPA kind of threw out what being a real estate professional was, and how my wife had to retire from her W-2 job to be able to get that status. And then she kind of threw in this thing that she said, hey, if you do short-term rentals, you can actually spend more time with the short-term rentals and get to real estate professional status a lot sooner, or you don't even have to qualify as real estate professional status because you're doing short-term rentals. So if you're renting your property out an average of less than 7 days and you have met certain hours of material participation, there's this little loophole where you can use the losses from your short-term rental to help offset your W-2 income. And so what we're doing is we're taking paper losses. The homes aren't actually losing money. You're taking a paper loss. So it's that paper loss is in depreciation. And so let's say, for example, my $629,000 home had over $200,000 of depreciation year one. And this is at that time when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, you can actually write off 100% bonus depreciation. And so the thing is a $200,000 tax break or tax write-off. And this is just depreciation. This isn't even the mortgage interest, the closing costs, any of your costs of doing business if you're replacing things. There's $200,000. I don't have $200,000 of Airbnb income. I might have, at the time when I bought in August to December, I might have had maybe $60,000 of income. So so that $200,000 write-off means that you're not paying any taxes on that $60,000, but what do you do with the rest of that write-off? And so if I was making $140,000 of income at my W-2 job, just as long as I hit those rules of averaging less than 7 days and I put in enough time and effort into it and documented it, I can use that extra $140,000 to help offset my W-2 income. So in the IRS's minds, I'm making $0. So.
Damn, Alex, dropping bombs for everyone. I definitely try to get into that.
Yeah. But talk to your CPA if you're don't listen to me. Remember, I've made a lot of mistakes. Talk to your CPA because every single situation will be unique. But that's kind of like, that's all I do. I tell people exactly what I did and what's worked for me. And whether they want to follow that, I'd say, hey, just follow up with your professional, make sure it works for you.
Do you know off the top of your head what the specific or the number of hours that you need? Because I'm just curious. So like, for instance, right now I work part-time. So I work 2 days a week in the hospital, and I got this new Airbnb that I'm trying to get underway. But like, could I say I'm working on the Airbnb 4 or 5 days while I'm working in the hospital 2 days? And would that be enough to get the advantages?
So the tax loophole that most healthcare professionals do, and physicians or whoever it is, they'll get 100 hours of material participation, whether that's staging a property, repairs, guest communication, so on and so forth. It's like active hours, something that you wouldn't pay a property manager for. You'd pay like your handyman, all of this stuff, or you would pay your property manager for. Put that in a detailed spreadsheet. There's different softwares that you could put that, but you need to hit 100 hours Plus, the other caveat is you have to do it more than anyone else in the business. So let's say, for example, if your cleaner cleans your property for 101 hours and you've only done 100 hours, then you don't qualify at that point.
Got it.
So you have to do it more than anyone else. And like I said, it has to average less than 7 days.
Okay. It's great information. Thank you for sharing that for everyone.
Yep. Remember, not a CPA. Talk to you.
Not a CPA at all.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite podcast that changed your mindset to get into everything that you did, or just like something that you love listening to?
For me, I was a Bigger Pockets guy, and I remember listening, and I was around like episode 300 or something like that, and I said, you know what, let me start from the beginning. And I think their podcast started in 2014, somewhere around there, when like the bubble burst and all of that, And so I started from episode 1, and I just kept listening on sequence. And I remember talking to my friends who had kind of followed me on that same journey. I'm like, hey, did you hear about Section 8 housing? I'm like, yeah, we need to get into that. Or did you hear about multifamily investing? Yeah, we need to get into that. So it was like one thing after another. And they'll excite you because there's all of these people that have all of these different real estate strategies, and they'll all work. It's just whether you're going to dive into it and be an expert in that field. But what you need to do is find what calls to you. Luckily for me, it was landed on short-term rentals, right? And what's funny is I remember like looking at the podcast, the one that really spoke to me, it didn't speak to me the first time. I had to like listen to it a second time to finally like understand the message. So anyway, Bigger Pockets was the OG one. Listen to that from the beginning. To be honest with you, I don't listen to it anymore. It's just I got a lot of other things going on, but
Totally.
I don't think I listened to music for a year and a half. All I would do is working out at the gym or driving to and from work, just listen to a podcast. So.
Yeah, I agree. Bigger Pockets was definitely the beginning for me as far as like changing my mindset. I liked it because it showed normal people, and it was very relatable that they're doing this real estate stuff. It didn't feel like some person who was just like way ahead of you that you couldn't relate to. So yeah, I think it's great because it also gives that exposure to many different investment strategies. And so for anyone who's considering it, explore all, but you definitely got to focus on one. It's very easy to get the shiny object syndrome. And I think sometimes if you do that too much, then you might not get success. So you got to really focus on one, become an expert at it, do that for like 3 to 5 years, and then diversify. Would you agree?
100%. Yeah.
What's the favorite book that you have or are you currently reading? Do you have any books?
With me, it's a mindset book. I always tell people Can't Hurt Me. The audiobook was definitely and still is my number one book by David Goggins. It's more of a mindset of just working through things and not having the right cards dealt to you and just working your butt off to get to that goal.
David Goggins is awesome. Who's someone that you really look up to, whether it be in the real estate space or just someone in general? Who's your biggest mentor?
Oh man, really tough question. I don't know if I have one. I should. Dang, I didn't know you were going to ask me this. Because there's so many people, right? It isn't just one person that I looked up to. It's just I take from so many different people out there in the space. Like I said, the real estate space is so small that I take from. I know for me early on when I first started, Avery Carl was huge for me because she, talked so much about short-term rentals that I listened to her and her husband, Luke Carl, like on every word that they talked about because I was just trying to observe so much information. So if anything in the short-term rental space, I would have to give them so much credit because I probably wouldn't have had the confidence or the knowledge to initially start this.
Me too.
Yeah, definitely find someone who you resonate with whatever investment strategy, and then just listen to them. I think that's the great idea. What are you most excited for coming up in this end of this year or next year?
Rest.
Rest.
Because the thing is, I think a lot of times when we start off this, and it's definitely me, like it's kind of snowballed like crazy. Like I didn't think I would be teaching students. I didn't think I would start a co-hosting business. I didn't think I would start a fund, so on and so forth. And so the hard part about it is like balancing life. And so at a certain point, you get to whatever your monetary goals are, and it's like, do you really need any more? And then now it's about trying to enjoy life and really trying to figure that part of it out, because I don't know if I need to grow anymore. I already have the systems in place, but at what point is enough?
Have you read the book Buy Back Your Time?
I have not. No, it's on my list though.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. I've read it. It's by Dan Martell. And for anyone who doesn't know who it is, it's the whole premise of the book is essentially obviously buying back your time, focusing on the activities that bring you the most amount of revenue, and then just hiring out for everything else because there's different stages. So when you first start a business, if you're doing everything, so your time is very much spent doing all the day-to-day things. And as you start to grow, obviously you can hire out, and then that's essentially how you get back your time, and then you become like more of an owner. It's just like Robert Kiyosaki's 4 quadrants also.
Yeah, that's where we're at. I mean, even hiring virtual assistants. I mean, we've hired and fired several of them now. We actually have a new one starting on Thursday. So we're trying to I want to duplicate myself as much as possible, right? Like if she could operate 80% of what I'm doing, I'd be very happy with that. So even if that means less money out of my pocket, in my pocketbook. So
yeah, it's very easy to think that everyone can't do it as great as you, but like you said, if someone can do it just 80% or even 70%, to me that's great.
Yep.
When you're not doing real estate stuff, what's your favorite way to decompress or spend time?
Yeah, let's go Dodgers. We just won the World Series here, so. Big sports fan. I love the Dodgers. It's kind of random, but I like the Cleveland Browns, and that's kind of the misery part of it is being a Cleveland Browns fan. It's absolutely awful, like every single year. So I do that. Like I said, hiking. I did hike. Actually, one of the reasons why I got into this was because I really enjoyed hiking. And when I looked at different hikes that I wanted to do, they would be like, oh, this is a 9-day trek to summit Mount Kilimanjaro. I'm like, there's absolutely no way I'd be able to do that because at the present, I work full time and I would need so much more passive income. So I'd like to do that a lot more. Just something real simple with walking my dogs and spending time with my family. That's actually probably the biggest bang for my buck there. So
I love it. Well, Alex, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do so?
On social media, you could find me on Instagram at The Real Alex Sabio or on Facebook. If you are a healthcare professional, I have a Facebook group called Healthcare Professionals Investing in Real Estate. Join there where I add a lot of value. I try to post there at least once or twice a week with like, hey, here's some of the things that I've done that have been successful. So if you're looking for some free tips or want to reach out, find me there.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys found some value from Alex. I know I did. I'll put all of his information in the show links below. I'm Lorenzo Mercado, and this is Alex. This is The Lowdown. Thank you guys for tuning in. Peace.